My sister always wanted to be a mother, then hated her daughter the moment she was born. I nuked both our families when I discovered why. My sister always dreamed of being a mom, until the day her daughter was born, and she instantly despised her. I ended up tearing both our families apart once I figured out the real reason why. Up until that moment, we'd all just assumed Amber resented Lily because she wasn't a boy. Amber had always been open about hating girls. She preferred the company of men, whether it was her friends, partners, or co-workers. She never hung out with women. So when she got pregnant for the first time, she went all out for a gender reveal, decking the whole place out in blue. She was convinced it'd be a boy. I'll never forget her expression when the air filled with pink dust. Her smile was forced, and I caught the way her shoulders sagged like someone had just let the air out of her. After that, the rest of her pregnancy was filled with her sharing posts online about how dramatic girls are. She joined boy mom groups and constantly talked about hoping for a son next time. Once Lily was born, everything just got off. Amber dressed her in nothing but beige and white, like she didn't want her to look like a girl at all. She never even used her name, just called her the child, like she wasn't really hers. Whenever we had family gatherings, Amber would complain nonstop about Lily being too emotional, too clingy. The kid was too. Just too. And yet Amber told anyone who'd listen that she didn't want her. Meanwhile, my husband Mark and I had spent 7 long years trying for a baby. We went through everything: hormone shots, painful procedures, the crushing disappointments. One day, I actually asked Amber if she'd ever consider letting us adopt Lily. She'd made it so clear she didn't want to raise her. But the look she gave me, it was wild. She told me she'd rather sell Lily than hand her over to us. I remember laughing it off back then, thinking she was being dramatic. I was wrong. When she got pregnant again last year, she was absolutely obsessed with having a boy. She flat out said that if it turned out to be a girl, she'd terminate the pregnancy because she wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. During that pregnancy, she tried every trick in the book. She used those old Chinese gender prediction charts, slathered herself in oils, even looked into pricey gender selection treatments. We all thought she'd lost it, until we found out she was actually having a boy. She lost her mind with joy. At the reveal party, when the blue smoke went up, she dropped to her knees, sobbing like she'd just been saved. Lily, still a toddler, walked over to give her a hug. And Amber? She pushed her away. The poor girl fell and scraped her knee on a metal chair. It was one of the worst things I've ever witnessed. After that, we mostly kept our distance. Even after her son Robert was born, none of us got too involved. She'd given birth overseas, said it was cheaper that way. Then, about 2 months after Robert's arrival, we had a family video call. At first, everything seemed okay. Amber was glowing, showing off her newborn in his mama's boy onesie. Then my aunt asked to see Lily. That's when Amber's face changed. Her eyes widened, and she looked down. She quietly said Lily wasn't there. My aunt pressed her. Amber finally admitted she'd put Lily up for adoption back in December, while she was 6 months pregnant. Said she couldn't handle 2 kids, and giving Lily away before Christmas meant she didn't have to buy her gifts, money she needed for her trip. We were all speechless. Not even half a minute later, my grandma clutched her chest. She was gasping for air, calling out Lily's name. I screamed at Amber, telling her Mark and I would have taken Lily in a heartbeat. Then I noticed Mark. The way he stiffened when I said that, something wasn't right. The call spiraled. Amber hung up. My grandma had to be rushed to the hospital. That night, once I was sure Grandma would be okay, I came home and found Mark acting strangely. He was in our bedroom, deleting photos from his phone. All of them were from 4 years ago. Some looked like ultrasound images, black and white. The timing lined up too perfectly with when I had my miscarriage. I tried telling myself it didn't mean anything. But I had to ask. I asked what he was deleting. He didn't answer, just walked into the bathroom and kept going. When he came out, I pressed him again. That's when he snapped. Accused me of being paranoid and told me to drop it. Said Lily was Amber's issue, and we had no business digging into it. But I hadn't even mentioned Lily. That's when I knew something was wrong. The next morning, I hired a private investigator. I asked him to find Lily, figure out who her father was, and dig up anything useful I could build a case around. He worked fast. Within 2 weeks, he came back with hotel logs, credit card statements, even recovered texts. And the timeline? It was damning. 4 years ago, right after I lost my baby and was lying in a hospital bed, Amber had comforted Mark. Lily was born exactly 9 months later. The PI even managed to recover a toothbrush Lily had used at our place. DNA tests confirmed it. Mark was her father. I completely broke down. I wanted to scream. I wanted to set the world on fire. But I didn't. I stayed calm. And a week later, I sat in my car outside our apartment, holding an envelope with every piece of proof. Mark was due home in an hour. Amber was supposed to stop by 2, just to catch up. I watched them both pull into the parking lot. Mark's silver Honda, Amber's red SUV. They got out and exchanged a brief look, quick and cautious, before heading inside. They didn't walk side by side. They kept some distance, like they were trying not to look connected. My hands trembled as I clutched the envelope. I waited 5 minutes, then followed them up. The elevator ride felt like it would never end. When I opened the door, I could hear their voices, calm, casual. Inside, Mark sat on the couch, thumbing through his phone. Amber was by the counter, sipping water like nothing was wrong. The normalcy of it all made me feel sick. "Hey babe," Mark said without even looking up. "Amber just got here." I walked over and placed the envelope on the coffee table. "We need to talk," I said. "All three of us." Amber rolled her eyes. "If this is about Lily again, I told you, it's over. The adoption's final." I said nothing. Just opened the envelope and laid the contents across the table. Hotel bills, phone logs, the DNA results. Mark's face went pale the second he saw the papers. "What is this?" he asked, his voice cracking. "You already know," I said, keeping my tone level. "4 years ago, while I was lying in a hospital bed grieving our child, you were sleeping with my sister." Amber just laughed. She actually laughed. Like it was funny. "Oh my God, you really hired someone to investigate us? That's just pathetic," she said, like I was the crazy one. "Is it pathetic that Lily is Mark's daughter?" I asked, holding up the DNA test results. "Is it pathetic that you gave away his child and didn't even tell him?" Mark stood up so fast his phone slipped from his lap and hit the floor. "This is fake," he barked. "You made this up because your bitter Amber had kids and you couldn't." Without saying a word, I pulled out my phone and hit play. It was the audio file, the one my PI had pulled from Amber's own security system. Mark's voice echoed through the room, whispering about keeping secrets and making sure I never found out Lily was his. Amber's laughter from the recording faded as the truth hit her. She slammed her glass down so hard, it cracked on the counter. "You recorded us?" "I didn't have to," I said calmly. "Your fancy baby monitoring security system? The one you installed after Mason was born?" "Yeah, that's where it came from." I gathered the stack of papers back into neat little piles. "I've already filed for divorce, Mark. Our accounts are frozen." He made a grab for the documents, but I yanked them away. "Half the money's already moved. You can't do this," he snapped. "I can." And I did. "Adultery tends to change how assets get divided," I replied. I turned to Amber. "Did Mark ever send you money for Lily? Ever help out financially?" Her expression twisted. "He said he couldn't without tipping you off. He told me once you guys split naturally, he'd help. But then you just kept trying for a baby." That was all it took. They turned on each other instantly. Mark yelled that she tricked him, that she trapped him with a kid he didn't ask for. Amber screamed back that she'd raised his daughter alone, while he got to pretend it never happened. I stepped back and watched the whole thing unravel. Two liars clawing at each other now that their conspiracy was falling apart. Then, suddenly, the front door burst open. My grandmother came in, her arms linked with my aunt and uncle. Even after her hospital scare, her presence filled the room like thunder. She didn't waste a second. "Enough," she said sharply, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "Amber, we need to talk about that adoption." Amber folded her arms. "There's nothing to talk about. It's done. Closed adoption. No contact." I made sure. My aunt stepped forward. "The Sunshine Private Adoption Agency, right? I've seen those documents. I've worked with them before in family court." Amber's smug look faltered just a little. So, my aunt said. "They have a 6-month reversal window, standard policy. If both biological parents didn't consent, the child can be reclaimed." She turned to Mark. "Did you sign anything?" He shook his head slowly. "I didn't even know she was pregnant until after Lily was born. She told me it was just a one-night stand." Amber spat at me. "I picked a family in Oregon just so you'd never be able to find her. They're probably already attached to her." I took a breath and pulled out another sheet of paper. "Actually, they'd been trying to get a hold of you," I said. "Apparently you didn't mention all the behavioral issues Lily was having, the same ones you used to complain about to everyone." Amber lunged for her phone. "I'll call them right now. I'll tell them to keep her. They're already on their way back," I said, voice quiet but steady. "They reached out to the agency 2 weeks ago. They're returning her. My lawyer's been working with them. Everything's arranged." Grandma stepped forward, her face stern. "You have 2 options, Amber. Help us get Lily home, or I remove you, and Mason, from my will. Completely." Amber's cheeks flushed red. "You can't threaten me with money." "I just did," Grandma snapped. "That little girl deserves better than being discarded like trash just because she wasn't the son you wanted." Amber turned to Mark, grabbing at his arm. "We can fix this. We'll fight it. We'll get custody, together. Mark pulled his arm away. Our daughter? You gave our daughter away without even telling me. You let me think she was some stranger's kid. You didn't want her either. Amber shrieked. You were relieved when I said I'd take care of it. My aunt quietly raised her phone. Just so everyone knows, I've been recording this. Your confession that you gave Lily away just to hurt your sister? That'll be interesting in family court. Amber bolted for the door. But my uncle was already there, arms folded, blocking her path. My truck's behind your SUV. You're not going anywhere. Right then, Amber's phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a call from the adoption agency. She picked it up, switched it to speaker, trying to sound in control. Hello? Ms. Amber? Came the calm voice on the other end. The adoptive family had an emergency and is returning early. They'll be in town tonight. Where should they bring Lily? My house. Amber snapped. No, said another voice, my lawyer, who'd been looped into the call. We've arranged for Lily to be brought to her great-grandmother's home. Everyone has agreed that it's the safest and most neutral option. Amber screamed and threw her phone at the wall. It shattered on impact. Mark took a step back from her as she whipped around, rage on her face. You planned all of this, she yelled, pointing straight at me. All of you. You'll never be her mother. Never. I looked at her, voice calm. And neither will you. You made that choice when you gave her away, to hurt me. My aunt pulled out a folder. Mark, these are voluntary parental rights transfer forms. If you sign, you avoid charges for abandonment and the thousands you owe in unpaid support. His hands were trembling as he reached for the papers. Charges? You knew about Lily for years and gave no support. My aunt said firmly. And Amber's messages prove it. He didn't even read them. Just signed. Amber's face crumbled. She looked like her world had just caved in. This isn't over. She hissed. I'll get her back. She's mine. Legally, sure. My aunt said. But family court's gonna be very interested in your social media. Every post where you said you didn't want a daughter. That spite-fueled adoption. That time you said you'd rather sell her than give her to family. We left separately. A quiet convoy of cars headed toward Grandma's house. Amber tried to follow but got pulled over for driving erratically. By the time she arrived, the adoptive family's car was already in the driveway. I stood on the porch as they carried Lily out. She looked smaller than I remembered. She had on a pink coat I'd never seen before, her hair done in long pigtails. She was clutching a warm little stuffed elephant. The woman carrying her looked exhausted. She's been asking for someone named Auntie. Cries for you every night. I felt my heart break. Lily's eyes scanned the crowd. She looked scared, unsure of all the unfamiliar faces. When Amber shoved her way through the group, Lily stepped back, hiding behind the adoptive father's leg. I don't know you, she whispered. Amber dropped to her knees. I'm your mommy, baby, don't you remember? Amber called out, her voice trembling. But Lily shook her head and leaned in closer to the people who had actually taken care of her these past few months. Then her eyes found me, and that spark of recognition lit up her whole little face. Auntie! She shouted and ran straight into my arms, wrapping herself tight around my legs. Where'd Mommy go? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. I knelt down, looked her right in those big eyes, and said softly, I'm here now, sweetheart. You're safe. Suddenly, Amber let out a scream, pure rage. Lily jumped and started crying. The whole front yard turned into chaos. Grandma stepped in fast, hurrying everyone inside. Phones came out, lawyers got called, and emergency custody paperwork started flying. It was a mess, but for the first time in what felt like forever, I had hope. The emergency custody hearing got set for 3 days later. And let me tell you, those 72 hours were absolute hell. Every second was a fight, legal moves, emotional landmines, family drama nonstop. I barely slept. The morning after Lily came to Grandma's house, Amber showed up at the front door at 6 sharp. She was banging so hard it rattled the windows, shouting that she wanted her daughter. But my uncle had stayed the night just for this. He cracked the door and told her calmly that if she wanted to talk, she needed to go through her lawyer. Amber tried to shove past him, but he didn't budge. She stormed off, screaming about calling the police, threatening kidnapping charges. An hour later, my lawyer, Greg, called with news that made my stomach drop. Amber had already hired a lawyer of her own and was filing emergency motions. She claimed I'd forced an illegal adoption reversal. But thankfully, the adoptive family from Oregon had our backs. They provided sworn statements about everything, Lily's nightmares, how she stopped eating, hours of crying, and how she kept asking for Auntie. They documented everything. Still, Amber's attorney tried to argue they were just exaggerating. Later that day, Mark showed up while I was with Lily in the kitchen. She was sitting at the table, coloring quietly, still unsure about everything. When she heard his voice, she looked up, but didn't say a word or move. He tried to walk toward her, but Grandma stepped right between them. You signed your rights away. she said, cold as ice. I was pressured, Mark argued. I didn't understand what I was signing. Greg had been sitting in the living room, combing through files. He stood up and said, You signed in front of 3 witnesses, and the documents were fully explained to you. That's not coercion. Mark's face flushed red. I want to see my daughter. I kept my voice calm, not wanting to scare Lily. The daughter you ignored for 4 years? The one you let Amber give away like trash without even saying anything? And just like that, Mark's calm cracked. He spun toward me, his voice harsh and bitter. At least I didn't need a private investigator to stalk my own family. How long were you planning this? How long were you waiting to steal her? Before I could say anything, Lily's little voice broke through. Why is everyone yelling? The whole room froze. I walked over, dropped to my knees beside her chair, and smoothed her hair. Sometimes grown-ups argue, baby. But you're okay. I promise. She looked straight at Mark, her eyes wide and curious. Are you my daddy? Mark's lips moved, but nothing came out. After a few seconds, he turned around and walked out the door. Lily watched him leave, then quietly went back to her coloring, like none of it had happened. But the storm wasn't over. The next morning, we got another shock. Amber had gone to Lily's old daycare and tried to get her records, saying she needed them for medical reasons. Thankfully, the daycare director had heard about what was going on. Small-town gossip worked in our favor for once, and refused to give her anything. Amber caused such a scene that they had to call security. The whole thing was documented and sent straight to our legal team. My aunt, bless her, spent hours that night digging through Amber's social media history. She found years' worth of posts, rants in boy mom groups, angry complaints about raising a daughter, and even a deleted post from when Lily was just 18 months old asking if anyone knew a lawyer who handled rehoming kids. That one nearly broke me. Sure, Amber's lawyer would claim it was all taken out of context. But anyone reading it could see the pattern. Meanwhile, the financial pressure hit fast. Mark had gotten into one of our investment accounts before the freeze finished processing. He pulled out 30 grand. Greg rushed to file a motion to claw it back, but damage was done. I had to ask Grandma for help covering legal costs. I hated doing it, felt sick even asking, but she didn't hesitate. Then, 2 nights before the hearing, someone threw a rock through the living room window. There was a note tied to it, "Stop this or you'll regret it." We called the police, but without proof it was Mark or Amber, all they could do was file a report. Lily was terrified. She clung to me all night, asking over and over if the bad people were coming back. The day of the hearing arrived under gray skies and steady drizzle. Lily picked out her favorite purple dress. I combed her hair into neat pigtails and tried to stay strong. We walked into the courthouse hand in hand, my whole family close behind us like a wall of protection. Amber showed up separately, dressed in a stiff business suit that didn't look like hers. Her lawyer had clearly told her to look maternal. The courtroom was smaller than I imagined, almost like a meeting room. Judge Whitman, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s, flipped through our documents while Lily sat quietly on my lap, hugging her stuffed elephant. Amber's lawyer went first. He painted her as a struggling, overwhelmed single mom who'd made a heartbreaking choice for her daughter's benefit. He claimed the adoption was legal and final and accused my family of interfering in a closed process. Said Amber had been battling postpartum depression and deserved a second chance. Then Greg stood. And he brought the storm. He laid out the timeline. Showed the social media posts. Played clips from the recordings, conversations where Amber admitted she gave up Lily just to spite me. Highlighted how Mark was never informed, never consulted. And then came the video from the adoptive mother, Lily crying until she vomited, begging for auntie. Amber broke. She tried to laugh it off, saying the posts were just jokes. Everyone vents about their kids online, she said. The judge wasn't laughing. Judge Whitman asked to speak with Lily privately, just her and a child advocate. They were gone for 20 minutes, but it felt like hours. When they came back, Lily ran straight to me and buried her face in my shoulder. And then Judge Whitman gave her ruling. Calm. Firm. Unmistakable. Given the circumstances surrounding the adoption, the father's lack of consent, and the child's emotional state, Judge Whitman said, eyes sharp but steady, I'm granting temporary emergency custody to the petitioner while a full investigation is conducted. Amber looked like she'd just been slapped. Visitation will be limited. The judge continued. Twice a week. Supervised. At a court-approved facility. The final custody hearing will take place in 90 days. And that's when Amber exploded. She's not even her real mother, she shouted, pointing at me like I'd stolen something. This is kidnapping. Ms. Amber. Judge Whitman's voice cut through the courtroom like ice. One more outburst, and I will hold you in contempt. Outside on the courthouse steps, Amber was waiting. You think this is over? You think you've won? She spat, tears in her eyes. I'll never stop fighting. Never. My grandmother stepped up beside me, calm as ever. Then you'll keep losing. she said softly. Because you're not fighting out of love. You're fighting out of pride. The first supervised visit happened the following week. It was a complete disaster. Lily cried the entire time, sobbed into the corner, begging to go home. Amber tried to win her over with toys and candy, but Lily wouldn't even look at her. The court-appointed supervisor made notes. Amber seemed more annoyed than concerned, visibly irritated by her daughter's distress. Meanwhile, Mark had moved on fast. He was already dating someone new from his office, someone who'd apparently been comforting him through the divorce. He posted pictures of them online, smiling together, captioned "Fresh Start." The speed of it was shocking, but it only helped our case. What kind of father moves on that easily? 3 weeks into the temporary custody, Lily finally started to settle. The nightmares still came. She still had questions, asking why she had to see that lady, wondering if she'd done something wrong. But she was eating more. Smiling more. She'd started humming again. I enrolled her in play therapy, driving her twice a week. We were doing everything we could to help her heal. But the cost? It was crushing me. Legal fees piled up daily. We discovered Mark had drained more accounts than we thought. On top of the debt from our failed fertility treatments, I was drowning. I sold everything I could, my jewelry, my car, anything worth $1. My family chipped in when they could, but they were stretched thin too. And Amber? She was spiraling. She showed up unannounced at one of Lily's therapy appointments, demanding to sit in. When the therapist refused, she parked outside and filmed everyone going in and out. Then she accused her own lawyer of colluding with us. He dropped her that same week. The second visit was somehow worse than the first. Amber brought Mason, trying to manufacture some kind of sibling bond. But the sound of the baby crying scared Lily. She crawled under the table and refused to come out. When the supervisor gently tried to coax her, Amber snapped. She's just being dramatic. She wants attention. The visit ended early. My job started to suffer. My boss had been patient, but I was leaving too often: court dates, daycare calls, emergency therapy sessions. After the third early leave in 1 week, I was placed on unpaid leave until things stabilize. 6 weeks before the hearing, Amber's new lawyer filed a motion claiming I was alienating Lily from her biological mother. They demanded expanded visitation and a psych evaluation of me as a guardian. The evaluation alone would cost thousands, money I just didn't have. Then my aunt, like a guardian angel, found a child psychologist named Dr. Carter. He heard our story and offered to evaluate Lily for free. He met with her 3 times. Just sat with her during play, asked gentle questions. His report was heartbreaking but clear. Lily was experiencing serious trauma from the adoption. She saw me as her main safe person, her attachment figure. And when she talked about Amber, she showed clear signs of fear. That night, I broke down at Grandma's kitchen table, buried under bills and debt notices. I'd wanted to be a mother for so long, but not like this. Not while clawing my way through a courtroom, fighting my sister for a child who still woke up screaming at night. "We'll get through it," Grandma said, writing another check I knew she couldn't afford. Family takes care of family. The third supervised visit never happened. Amber showed up drunk, stumbling, slurring, reeking of alcohol. The supervisor denied her entry and logged the whole thing. Her second lawyer dropped her the next day. With only 4 weeks left until the final hearing, Mark came storming back into the picture with a brand new strategy. He filed a motion to revoke his signed parental release, claiming emotional manipulation. He wanted joint custody, with me. He was trying to cut Amber out completely. In his filing, he called her unfit and laid out years of poor parenting. It was a betrayal so sharp it almost didn't surprise me. That's just how they were. Amber lost it. She bombarded Mark with messages, hundreds of them, accusing him of everything from betrayal to abuse. His lawyer submitted every single one to the court. They destroyed each other. But they made everything harder. Now I was battling 2 unstable parents instead of 1. Lily's therapy uncovered more and more pain. She remembered being left with strangers. Remembered crying for me. And worst of all, she remembered being told that I didn't want her anymore. She thought she'd done something wrong. That we'd all thrown her away. Her therapist submitted a statement to the court. Removing Lily from my care now would cause serious, long-term psychological harm. Then, 2 weeks before the final hearing, I found her sitting quietly with scissors in her hand, chopping away at her hair. "Why, baby?" I asked gently. She looked up at me and said, "I want to look like a boy. So mommy will love me." I held her tight as she sobbed, wishing with every breath that I could take her pain and make it mine. And then, Amber sealed her own fate. She posted a drunken rant on social media, slurring her words, accusing the judge and the Child Services Office of being part of a conspiracy to steal her daughter. She named names. Made threats. She was arrested the same night. Charged with harassment and threatening court officials. Bail was set at $10,000. No one paid it. The day before the final hearing, I sat across from Greg in his office. I hadn't slept. I hadn't eaten. I was empty. He looked over everything one last time: the reports, the recordings, the custody claims, the financial records, and the therapist's statement. The evidence is stacked, he said. Amber abandoned her. She's not fit. Mark's last-minute move looks like exactly what it is: a desperate play for control. But this is family court. You know how unpredictable it can be. I nodded. But no matter what happens tomorrow, he continued, you've given that little girl more love and safety in 3 months than she's ever known. That matters. That night, I tucked Lily into bed at Grandma's house. Her hair was patchy from the scissors, but I still tucked it behind her ear and kissed her forehead. She looked up at me, her eyes serious, like she'd already seen too much for someone so small. Auntie, will you be my mommy forever now? My throat closed up, but I smiled and whispered, I'm going to try my very best, sweetheart. She gave a little nod, satisfied, and curled up under the blanket. I sat beside her bed, just watching her breathe, trying to steady myself for the fight ahead, the one that would decide both our futures. Tomorrow, I'd either walk out with the family I'd always dreamed of, or lose another child I loved with my whole heart. There wasn't any middle ground left. The final hearing came on a cold, gray Thursday. I dressed Lily in her favorite purple sweater and did my best to braid her choppy little haircut. She held tight to my hand as we walked into the courthouse, my family circling around us like a wall of protection. Amber showed up 20 minutes late. Alone. Disheveled. Her newest lawyer had dropped her after the arrest, which meant she was now representing herself. She wore the same wrinkled suit from the last hearing, coffee stains and all. Mark was already seated, on the other side of the room, scrolling on his phone like none of this mattered. His new attorney sat beside him, sleek and professional, the kind who probably sold "Family First" in bold letters while charging by the minute. She was arguing that Mark still had rights, even after signing them away. Then Judge Whitman entered and got right to the point. She brought up Amber's arrest, how she'd threatened court officials and named people online. Amber tried to explain it away, said she was just stressed. But the judge cut her off. What it shows, she said, is a serious lack of judgment and self-control. Greg presented our case step by step. The psychological evaluations, the visitation reports, the documentation proving Amber had given Lily away not out of necessity, but out of spite. He showed how I'd spent every last penny to give Lily a stable home, while Amber hadn't contributed a cent since the adoption. Then Dr. Carter took the stand. He explained everything in clinical terms, terms that somehow hit even harder than emotion ever could. Lily's abandonment had fractured her sense of security. She believed she was unlovable. That she'd been discarded for being the wrong kind of child. He said I was the one stable attachment she had. Removing her now would cause harm that couldn't be undone. Amber attempted a cross-examination, but it quickly devolved. She accused Dr. Carter of being biased, paid off, part of some system working against her. The judge had to warn her, twice. Then came Mark's turn. His lawyer tried to paint him as a poor man caught in the middle. Claimed he was misled. Said he didn't know what he was signing when he gave up his rights. That he only now realized what fatherhood really meant. He took the stand and claimed he wanted to be there for Lily. But he avoided my eyes. And Lily's too. During recess, I took Lily to the restroom. That's when Amber found us. She cornered us in the hallway, dropped to her knees, and clutched Lily's shoulders. Tell them you want to come home with Mommy, she begged. Tell them you love me. Lily pulled away and backed into my legs, trembling. You're not my mommy, she said. You gave me away. A court officer arrived and pulled Amber back, but the damage was done. Lily clung to me the rest of the hearing, buried in my lap, only peeking out to make sure Amber wasn't coming near. Judge Whitman called Lily to her chambers again. This time, Lily stood up and walked over herself. Gave the judge a small, nervous smile before they disappeared behind closed doors. They were gone for half an hour. When they returned, the judge's face was firm, her voice unwavering. She began by acknowledging Amber's biological connection to Lily. But then she said, clearly and unequivocally, that biology isn't what makes someone a parent. She said Amber had abandoned her daughter out of gender bias and resentment. That her behavior had shown no true concern for Lily's well-being, only a desire to win. Then she turned to Mark. She laid out his years of absence, his sudden interest timed with a divorce, and his signed waiver of parental rights. It was legally binding, she said. And telling. And then she ruled. I was granted full legal custody. No visitation rights for Amber, not unless she completed parenting classes, anger management, and a psychological evaluation. Mark's petition was denied entirely. The adoption process could begin immediately. Amber jumped to her feet. You can't do this, she shouted. She's mine. I gave birth to her. Judge Whitman didn't even blink. And then you gave her away. This court's priority is Lily's well-being, not your regrets. Security started toward her, and she turned, looking ready to charge the bench. But at the last second, she whirled toward me instead, eyes full of rage. "This isn't over," she hissed. "I'll appeal. I'll fight until you're bankrupt." Mark slipped out during the chaos, never even looking back. His attorney gathered her things in silence, not bothering to cover her disgust. Outside, my family wrapped us up in a group hug. Lily didn't fully understand what had happened, but she felt it, felt the love. She looked up at Grandma, who was crying as she kissed Lily's forehead. That night, Amber showed up at Grandma's place. Mason on her hip. Drunk. She pounded on the door, screaming to see Lily. When no one answered, she hurled insults at the windows. The neighbors called the police. I watched from the upstairs window as they led her away. My grandmother cradled Mason while they did. Within the week, Amber's parental rights over Mason were suspended. Her own parents took custody. It was the only safe option left. The adoption process moved forward slowly. Background checks, home visits, more hearings. Lily started kindergarten at a brand new school, where no one knew anything about her past. She made a best friend named Emma. They both loved purple. 3 months in, Mark sent a single email. "I'm moving to Seattle. I won't contest the adoption. Just take care of her." I never wrote back. Amber's appeals went nowhere. Her behavior in court just got worse. She missed shifts at work, then lost her job altogether. Her parents said she showed up drunk, demanding money, claiming we'd ruined her life. And then, on a quiet Tuesday, the adoption was finalized. Lily wore a brand new purple dress and hugged a stuffed elephant, the one Judge Whitman had given her. When asked if she wanted to become my daughter, she looked the judge in the eye and said, "Yes," in the clearest voice I'd ever heard. That night, I tucked her into bed, in her room, in our home. She looked up at me, serious as ever. "Will she try to take me again?" she asked. I brushed her hair back, still growing out uneven. "Not if I can help it, baby," I whispered. "I'll always keep you safe." 6 months later, at a school event, I met a man named Ryan. His daughter was in Lily's class. He was widowed, understood complicated family dynamics. We talked while our girls played on the swings. Amber sent a letter through her lawyer requesting a photo of Lily. After discussion with Lily's therapist, we decided against it. The therapist said Lily was finally feeling secure. Contact now could undo. I returned to work part-time once Lily adjusted to school. Money remained tight, but we managed. My grandmother helped with after-school care, their bond growing stronger daily. A year after the adoption, I ran into Mark's mother at the grocery store. She hugged me, crying, saying she was grateful Lily had me. She tried reaching out to Mark about seeing his daughter, but he'd cut off contact. "He says it's easier this way," she whispered. Amber stabilized eventually, according to my aunt. Got sober, found work, saw Mason on weekends under supervision. She never stopped claiming we'd stolen Lily, but the fight had gone out of her. Ryan and I took things slow. He understood Lily came first. Their relationship developed naturally. He taught her to ride a bike, she showed him her drawings. When he proposed 2 years later, he asked Lily's permission first. The wedding was small, family only. Lily was my maid of honor, beaming in a purple dress she'd picked out herself. During the reception, she whispered, "Now I have a real daddy too." That night, after tucking her in, I stood in her doorway watching her sleep. The journey had been nothing like I'd imagined when Mark and I struggled with infertility. But this child, who'd been thrown away by those who should have loved her most, had become my whole world. Lily still had nightmares sometimes, still went to therapy monthly. The adoption hadn't erased her trauma, but she laughed now, really laughed. She knew she was loved, in the end. Amber had been right about one thing: I'd never be Lily's real mother in the biological sense. But I was her mother in every way that mattered, and that was enough.